In order to complete this two-way table, I'm looking for columns or rows that have just one piece of information missing. So I can see in this first column that there's a piece of information missing, so I need to do 79 minus 36 to work out how many females are swimming. The answer is 43. Along the totals row at the bottom, I can see that they totaled 200, and I've got 79 people who were swimming and 54 people that were doing athletics. Therefore, I need to do my total 200 minus 54 and also minus 79 to find out there must be 67 people there. That tells me that in total there were 67 people doing tennis, of whom 42 were male. So I need to do 67, take away 42, to leave me with 25 females that were doing tennis. Along the top row, I can now total up all of my females. That's 43, add 25, add 19, which equals 87. There's now only a total missing of males. I know there were 200 people in total and 87 females in total, so 200 take away 87 is 113. And now I know that there were a total of 113 males, 36 of whom did swimming, 42 of whom did tennis, 113 in total. So I'm going to do 113 minus 42 minus 36 to leave me with 35. Question 2. Use your calculator to work out the value of 8.7 times 12.3 divided by 9.5 minus 5.73. I'm a bit of a chicken here, so I will work out the numerator first, 8.7 times by 12.3, and I'll write down that that's 107.01, and that's divided by, and then I'm going to work out the bottom, 9.5 minus 5.73, 3.77, and then I'm going to do this separate calculation on my calculator. 107.01 divided by 3.77 equals, now it asks me to write down all the digits from my calculator, so I'm going to write down 28.384615. Part B asks me to write my answer to one significant figure. So I look at the first digit, which is a 2, and it's either 2 or it's a 3. Because the second digit is an 8, it means it rounds up to 3, but I need to remember that that was a 3 tens, so this stands for 30 to one significant figure. Question 3, P is equal to 2, Q is equal to minus 4. Work out the value of 3P plus 5Q. So that's 3 lots of 2 plus 5 lots of minus 4. 3 lots of 2 is 6, and 5 lots of minus 4 is minus 20. So this is 6 plus minus 20, which is the same as 6 minus 20, which gives me minus 14. Factorise 3m minus 6. Well, I can see that 3 is a factor of both terms, so I can take that out of the brackets. And then I need to think 3 times by what would give me 3m. Well, it's obviously 3 times by m. And then 3 times by what would give me minus 6. Well, it's 3 times by minus 2 would give me minus 6. Remember, to factorise means to put the brackets back in. Question 4. Frank did a survey on the areas of pictures in a magazine. The magazine had 60 pages. Frank worked out the area of each of the pictures in the first 2 pages. This may not be a good method to do the survey. Explain why. It's only worth 1 mark, so it's a nice quick question. It'll be something to do with it's not a big enough sample. saw something about the first 2 pages might not be representative of the magazine. Either one of those answers will be fine. Question 5. The diagram shows a prism. On the diagram, draw one plane of symmetry for the prism. This is just where we could cut it in half so that both halves would be the same. So we could either draw a line, kind of a slice line here. If we cut it there, both halves would be the same. Or we could cut it down here and both halves would be the same. In the space below, sketch the front elevation from the direction marked with an arrow. So this would just be the 2-dimensional shape that we would see if we were to kind of bend down and look at it directly face on. And of course, if we were to look at it straight on, this is what we would see. Question 6. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is just look at the picture that I've got in front of me. I can see I've been given a couple of angles, but most importantly, I can see that I've been given these signs, which tell me that what I'm looking at is a parallel line. So I'm looking for F's and Z's primarily. I know that that's going to have something to do with it. So it says write down the size of angle marked A. Well, it's probably quite clear to see that these 2 angles are the same. And what we can see here is a kind of backwards F, where this angle here is the same as this angle here. So we would say that A is equal to 45 degrees, and when it's an F that we've seen and not a Z, that's not what we've seen. It's the F that we've seen, which means we say corresponding angles are equal. Question 7. A circle has a radius of 5 centimetres. Work out the area of the circle. I need to remember that area equals pi r squared. So pi, I'm going to take as 3.142 times by 5 squared, which is 5 times 5. I'm going to type it into my calculator. 3.142 times 5 times 5 equals 78.55 centimetre squares. But it does ask for my answer correct to 3 significant figures. So that's my first significant figure, second significant figure, third significant figure. It's either 78.5 or it's 78.6. I look at this digit to tell me whether I'm going to round it up to 78.5 or down to, up to 78.6 or down to 78.5. Because it's a 5 or above, it means I round it up. So it's 78.6 centimetre squared to 3 significant figures. Question 8. Soap powder is sold in 2 sizes of box. We've got a 2 kilogram box for £1.72 and a 9 kilogram box for £7.65. And it asks me which size of box gives the better value for money. It's very difficult for me to compare these because they're different sizes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say in the small box, if it's £1.72 for 2 kilograms, then if I divide that by 2, I'll get the cost for a 1 kilogram box. So £1.72 divided by 2 tells me that it's 86p for 1 kilogram, and that's the small box. And then if I do the same for the big box, which is £7.65 for 9 kilograms. This time I want to divide it by 9 to find 1 kilogram. So I also divide my cost by 9. So I get £7.65 divided by 9 tells me that it's 85p per kilogram. And then it's very clear to see that the big box offers me better value for money because I only have to pay 85p for 1 kilogram. So now I can put big box. Question 10. A computer costs £360 plus 17.5% VAT. Calculate the total cost of the computer. Well, what I need to do is work out 17.5% of 360 and then add it to the 360. Now there are several ways of doing this. You could work out 10% of 360 by doing 360 divided by 10, which is 36. You could then half that to find out 5%, which would be 18. You could then half that again, that would be 2.5%, which would give you 9. And if you add those together, you get 17.5%. And if you add these together, 36 add 18 add 9, you get 63. That's your 17.5%, which you can then add 360, add 63, gives you £423. That's the total. Another way of doing it would just be to say 17.5% is the same as the decimal multiplier 0.175. So if I do 0.175 lots of 360, it should give me 63. Let's just check. 0.175 times 360. Yes, it does. It gives me 63, which I can then add to the original amount to give me again 423. Alternatively, you could say 17.5% added to my 100% gives me 117.5%, which as a decimal multiplier is 1.175. So to find out the cost straight away, I can just work out 117.5%, which is 1.175 times by 360, which should straight away tell me that it's £423. So lots of different ways of working that one out. Question 11. The scatter graph shows some information about 10 cars. It shows the time in seconds it takes each car to go from 0 miles per hour to 60 miles per hour. For each car, it also shows the maximum speed in miles per hour. What type of correlation does this scatter graph show? This is a very typical question. What we need to know is that anything that looks approximately this shape shows positive correlation. Anything that shows this shape going down is negative correlation. And when the crosses are just all over the place, it shows no correlation. This graph clearly shows negative correlation. Because it uses this in the question, I know that I'm either giving an answer of positive, negative, or no correlation. But I've been talking to my class about also maybe putting a sentence which puts this into context. So something along the lines of, as the time increases, the max speed decreases. Now in this question that's not necessary, but I think that sometimes this question A says describe the relationship that you see, and lots of people who write negative correlation then don't get those marks. So it's important to kind of put two statements, I think, but in this case negative would do. Part B says, as the time a car takes to go from 0 to 60 is 11 seconds, estimate the maximum speed for this car. Well, in this case, you'd need to get your ruler out and draw a line of best fit. I don't have a ruler, but it would go something along these kinds of lines. It's a line that goes through the middle, really, of all of the points. Then what you would need to show is that you've got 11 seconds, so you would need to go up from 11 until you hit the line of best fit and then go across. Obviously you are using your ruler and you've got nice straight lines at this point, and you could put something like there, like 122. Now there will be, in the mark scheme when this is marked, there will be a range, and it'll go probably something from about 117 to 123 or something like that. So as long as you are within that range, because obviously everyone's going to have a slightly different line of best fit. In the diagram, all measurements are in centimetres. The lengths of the sides of the triangle are 2x plus 9, 2x minus 3, 4x plus 5. Find an expression in terms of x for the perimeter of the triangle. Give your expression in its simplest form. So this means I'm looking for something that's got x in it. It's going to be a kind of sentence with lots of x's in it, like, I suppose, 2x plus 9. That's an expression, but I want it for the perimeter. The perimeter is obviously the distance around the outside of the shape. So all I've got to do is add my lengths, 2x plus 9 plus 2x minus 3 plus 4x plus 5. That's the perimeter of the shape, but it does say give your expression in its simplest form. So 2x plus 2x plus 4x makes 8x, and then I'll do this in a different colour. 9 minus 3 plus 5, well, 9 minus 3 is 6 plus 5 makes 11, and that's now in its simplest form. It then says the perimeter of the triangle is 39, find the value of x. Well, this means that my perimeter is equal to 39, and I effectively, to find the value of x, I need to solve this equation. So I want to get, first of all, 8x on its own, so I want to get rid of the plus 11, and the way I do that is by taking away 11. So I take 11 away from this side, which just leaves me with 8x, but I also take away 11 from this side, which leaves me with 28, and then I don't want 8x, I want 1x, so I want to divide it by 8. So that leaves me with x is equal to 3.5. And I'm just going to remember that it said at the start that it was about centimetres, so I'm going to put 3.5 centimetres just to make sure I get all of those marks. A piece of wood is 180 centimetres long. Tom cuts it into 3 pieces in the ratio 2 to 3 to 4. Work out the length of the longest piece. Well, I always like to turn any ratios into proportions, so in total there are 9 pieces, so the smallest piece is 2/9 of the whole, and that second piece is 3/9 of the whole, and this biggest piece is 4/9 of the whole. So I know, given that I have to work out the length of the longest piece, that's I need to work out what 4/9 is of the 180 centimetres. So I want to work out 4/9 of 180 centimetres, which is 180 divided by 9 and times by 4. So I take out my calculator. In fact, I don't need to do that. 180 divided by 9 is 20, times by 4 is 80 centimetres. The equation x cubed plus 2x is equal to 60 has a solution between 3 and 4. Use a trial and improvement method to find this solution. Give your answer correct to 1 decimal place. You must show all of your working. Okay, so I'm going to just draw myself a bit of a table, I think. I'm going to have my x values here. I might try and work out my x cubed, my 2x, and I might add them together so that I get the full answer, x cubed plus 2x, and then I'm going to have too low or too high here. So I'm going to try 3.5 first of all. So on my calculator, 3.5 cubed is 42.875, and 2 lots of 3.5 is 7, and when I add those together I get 49.875, which is too low. It's quite a lot too low, so I'm going to go for 3.8. 3.8 cubed is 54.872, and 3.8 times 2 is 7.6, and when I add those together, 54.872, I get 62.472, and that's obviously too high. So I'm going to go to 3.7. So 3.7 cubed is 50.653, and 3.7 times 2 is 7.4. When I add those together, plus 2.653, I get 58.053, which is too low. And at this point I have what we call a sandwich. It's two numbers that are next to each other in terms of their one decimal place, one of which is too low and one of which is too high. So I know that my answer is either going to be 3.7, which was too low, or 3.8, which was too high. And so now I just need to check the midpoint, the 3.75 point, to find out which one of those it's closer to. So 3.75 cubed is, oh, it's a long one, 52.734375, and 3.75 times 2 is 7.5. When I add those together, I get 60.234,375, which is too high, which means now my number is between 3.75, which was too high, and 3.7, which means I'm no longer interested in 3.8 as an answer, which means my answer to one decimal place must be x is equal to 3.7 to 1 dp. Now they must see the sandwich. They must see this bit. They do also want to see you checking your midpoint, and I think this visual diagram is a really nice way of working out which one it is. Okay, question 15, simplify. In this one we know that m cubed means m times m times m. And we're multiplying by m times m times m times m. Which means, of course, that what we've got is m to the power of 7. And, of course, you could have just added the indices 3 and 4 add together to make 7. In this one, we've got p times p times p times p times p times p times p divided by p times p times p. P times p times p times p times p times p, 1, 2, 3 times p, divided by p times p times p. And if we multiply by p and divide by p, we should cancel out. If we multiply by p and divide by p, we should cancel out. If we multiply by p and divide by p, we should cancel out, which leaves us with p to the power of 4. Of course, you could subtract these numbers nice and simply, 7 take away 3 is 4, because you're going to take away 3 of the p's on the top. Finally, if we think about this, we've got 4 times by x, times by x, times by y, times by y, times by y, and we're multiplying that by 3 times by x, times by y, times by y. The 3 times by the 4 makes 12. The x times the x times the x makes x cubed. And the y times the y times the y times the y times the y makes y to the power of 5. And you could have just multiplied 4 times 3, x squared times x to make x cubed, and y cubed times y squared to make y to the power of 5. ABC is a right-angled triangle. AB is 14 centimetres and BC is 12 centimetres. Calculate the length of AC. Okay, as soon as it talks about a right-angled triangle, I know I'm thinking about Pythagoras or trigonometry. In this case, because it's the 3 lengths that are connected, it's Pythagoras. So I'm going to use A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. The only thing that's important is that C is the hypotenuse here, which is the thing that I want to find. So I'm going to take one of my shorter sides, square it, take the other shorter side, square it, and that's going to be my hypotenuse, which is AC squared. 14 squared is 196, plus 12 squared, which is 144, is going to equal AC squared. When I add those together, I get 340. That's equal to AC squared, but I don't want the square, so I need to take the square root, which when I do so, it tells me that that hypotenuse AC is equal to 18.43908891 centimetres. I must be careful because it asks me for 3 significant figures. That's the first significant figure, the second significant figure, the third significant figure. I just have to decide, is it 18.4 or 18.5? I look at the next digit here, which because it's lower than 5, tells me that it's 18.4 centimetres to 3 significant figures. Question 17. Complete the table of values for y is equal to x squared minus 3x minus 1. Okay, so to get my y values, I need to square my x value, take away 3 lots of the x value, and take away 1. So first of all, I'm going to deal with 4. So I want 4 squared, take away 3 lots of 4, take away 1. 4 squared is obviously 16. Take away 3 lots of 4 is obviously 12, and then take away 1. 16 take away 12 is 4, take away 1 is 3. So that gives me that value up there. Now I'm going to do the same for x equal to 2. So I have 2 squared, take away 3 lots of 2, take away 1. 2 squared is 4, take away 3 lots of 2, which is 6, and take away 1. 4 take away 6 is minus 2, take away another 1 is minus 3. And finally, I'm going to do it for x is equal to minus 2, slightly more complicated because it's a negative number. So I want minus 2 squared, take away 3 lots of minus 2, and take away 1. Minus 2 squared, well, minus 2 times minus 2 is a positive 4. I'm taking away 3 lots of minus 2, which is minus 6, minus 1. So 4 minus minus 6, that becomes a positive. So 4 plus 6 is 10. Take away 1 is equal to 9. And now I want to plot these. So I'm going to do my positive ones first. 4, 3 is here. 3 minus 1 is here. 2 minus 3 is here. 1 minus 3 is here. 0 minus 1 is here. minus 1, 3 is here, and minus 2, 9 is here. Remember, it's always along the corridor and up the stairs when you're plotting, and each of these coordinates have come from the table. So that was coordinate 4, 3. And then I need to remember that this is a quadratic, so it's going to be a curve that looks a bit like that, and I have to do my best to draw a smooth curve that goes through all of the points and is a kind of bucket shape. It should look like that. Question 18. The table shows some information about the heights H of 100 students. That's going to be important. So there were 8 students between 120 but less than 130 centimetres. Find the class interval in which the median lies. The median is the middle value, so I'm going to use n plus 1 divided by 2 gives me 100, plus 1 divided by 2 gives me 50.5. Now that is the position of the median. I am looking for the 50.5th value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a cumulative frequency table. It's nice and handy that they've left a bit of space for me. And cumulative frequency means I'm just going to add these up as they go along. So 8 and then 8 plus the 16 means that so far I've got 24 values in between these two classes. Then I'm going to add the 25, which makes 49. So far I've got 49 values in these first classes, and so on. So add that 30 gives me 79, and hopefully I should have 100. Now I know that my 50.5th value, well actually what that means is I'm looking for my 50th value and my 51st value, and I need the value that lies in between those. So I know that my 50 and 51st value is not going to be in this first, nor in the first 2, nor in the first 3 class intervals. In fact, both those values are going to appear in this one, and so therefore the median itself will lie in this class interval. Part B, work out an estimate for the mean height of students. Well, this is a little bit more complicated. I need to find out the total height of the students, but these 8 people, I can't say that they were 120 centimetres because that will be an underestimation, and nor can I say that they're 130 centimetres because that will be an overestimation. Instead, I want to say that those 8 people were each, I'm going to say they were each 125 centimetres, and that's why it's an estimate, because I'm not actually getting a total value. I'm going to say the next 16 were each 135, so each time I'm taking the midpoint of the class interval itself. I'm going to say these 25 people were each at 145 centimetres. I'm going to say that these 30 people were each at 155 centimetres. And finally, these 21 people were each 165 centimetres. And when I work out those totals, I get 8 times 125 is 1,000. 16 times 135 is 2,160. 25 times 145 is equal to 3625. 30 times 155 is equal to 4650. And finally, 21 times by 165 is equal to 3465. When I add those totals up to find the total height, so if I added all of those heights together, I would get 46,500 14,900. Now, because I've been asked for an estimate of the mean, I need to take the total height and divide it by the total number of students, which was, of course, 100, which tells me that my mean, an estimate of the mean, is 149 centimetres, and that looks quite reasonable as an average height. Question 19. Expand and simplify x minus 3 times by x plus 5. What you need to remember is that everything from the first bracket must multiply everything from the second bracket. If it helps, you can write it out in the grid method. X minus 3 times by x plus 5. And I've just put a minus by the 3 to remind me that it is minus 3. So x times by x is x squared. X times by minus 3 is minus 3x. 5 times by x is 5x. And 5 times by minus 3 is minus 15. When I add my terms together, I get x squared minus 3x plus 5x minus 15, which gives me x squared, and minus 3x plus 5x gives me plus 2x minus 15. And this is the answer. Remember, this should be the sum of the two numbers, and this should be the product of those two numbers, and it is. Moving on to part B. 29 minus x divided by 4 is equal to x plus 5. Okay, so the first thing, as soon as there's a denominator, some kind of fraction, I think we want to get rid of that. So if we multiply both sides by 4, we will undo the fact that the left-hand side is divided by 4. So on the left-hand side, we will just have 29 minus x. But we must remember to multiply the right-hand side by 4 as well. So I get all of x plus 5 times by 4. And now I'm just going to multiply out the brackets. So 29 minus x is equal to 4x plus 20. Remember that that 4 there must multiply by both things in the bracket. And now I'm just going to solve this equation. Now, to get rid of this minus x here, I'm going to add x to both sides. That gets rid of it on the left-hand side, gets rid of the minus x, so it just leaves me with 29, but I must remember to do it to the right-hand side as well. So now I've got 5x plus 20. Now on the right-hand side, I want to get rid of that 20, so I'm going to take away 20. When I do it to the right-hand side, it just leaves me with 5x, but I've also got to do it to the left-hand side. That leaves me now with 9. And to undo the fact that x has been multiplied by 5, I'm going to divide by 5. So x is equal to 9 divided by 5. And if I do that on my calculator, I get 1.8. In a sale, normal prices are reduced by 12%. The sale of a price of a digital camera is £132.88. Work out the normal price of the digital camera. Okay, so this tells me that £132.88 is the sale price, which means, because it's been reduced by 12%, it means that it's 88% of the normal price. So 88% of the normal price is equal to £132.88. And when I am asked to work out the normal price, it means I'm asked to work out what the 100% price. Sometimes they talk about that as the original price. So if 88% is equal to £132.88, if I divide that by 88, I'll get what 1% was worth. So I do that on my calculator. £132.88 divided by 88 tells me that 1% is equal to £1.51. And then I multiply my 1% by 100 to find out what 100% is. And my 100% was £151. And I'm just going to quickly do a double check to make sure that if I had something that was £151 and I was reducing it by 12%, so I only had 88%, I'm just going to double check that it does in fact make £132.88. It does, I'm pleased. I've just done that on my calculator. So I can feel confident that that is the answer. Question 22. A, B, C, D and PQRS are mathematically similar. That means that one of them is an enlargement of the other. Find the length of PQ. Well, I've been given BC and the corresponding length, QR. BC is 10 centimetres and QR is 15 centimetres. So I can probably see this straight off, but if I do this divided by this, I will find out that my scale factor is 1.5 or 1.5, which means that length has been multiplied by 1.5, and in fact it means that all of the lengths have been multiplied by 1.5. So when I want to work out the length of PQ, I just need to find the corresponding length, which is 6, and I need to multiply it by 1.5. So 6 times by 1.5 is equal to 9 centimetres. Now very typically what they do is they then ask a question, find the length of AD. Now the length of AD is actually the smaller length here, and I need to make that really clear. Lots of people will now do 12 times by 1.5, but that would actually give me a bigger length, and I don't want that. I actually want a smaller length. So in this case, and this is very, very typical of part B's of these types of questions, instead of multiplying, I'm going to divide by the scale factor. So 12 divided by 1.5, I think will give me 8, yes it does, 8 centimetres. And I do want to just double check that everything here was increased in the second one, yes that's an increase, everything here was increased, yes my answer to part A is an increase, brilliant. Common sense tells me that I should have got that right. Question 23, ABC is a right angled triangle. Straight away that says this is either Pythagoras or it's trigonometry. AC is equal to 10.6 centimetres. I can see that that's the hypotenuse because it's opposite the right angle. And BC is equal to 8.2. Calculate the size of angle marked X. Well, because this one connects two sides and an angle, I know that I'm using basic trigonometry. And I'm thinking about SO, Ca, TOA, sine, cosine, and tangent, where the sine is equal to opposite divided by hypotenuse, the cosine is equal to adjacent divided by hypotenuse, and the tangent is equal to opposite divided by adjacent. I just need to work out which one of these to use. So I've been given the hypotenuse. I've also, if this is my angle X, I've been given the side that's adjacent to it, next to it. So I'm dealing with A and H, which tells me that this is the triangle I want, the cosine triangle. Now it tells me to get the cosine, I've got adjacent divided by hypotenuse, and those are the sides that I've got. So cos of X is going to be adjacent divided by hypotenuse, which means the cos of X is equal to 8.2 divided by 10.6. So I do this on my calculator. 8.2 divided by 10.6 tells me that the cos of X is equal to 0.77358490. I think I can probably stop there. Now I know that that's not the angle. Common sense tells me that the angle is not 0.77 degrees. I need to remember that that's found the cosine of X, which I now need to undo. So I take the inverse of cosine, and that means that we are taking the shift button, so we're doing shift, cos, and then we're using our answer that should tell us that X is equal to 39.32308.918. Need to remember that it asked me for 3 significant figures. So that's my first significant figure, second significant figure, third significant figure. It's either 39.3 or it's 39.4. I need to look at this digit, and because it's below 5, it tells me that it rounds down to 39.3 degrees to 3 significant figures. The table below gives some information about students in a school. Andrew's going to carry out a survey of these students. He uses a sample of 50 students stratified by year group and gender. Work out the number of year 13 girls that should be in a sample. So this is the bit of information needed. What I need in a stratified sample is for the same proportion in the whole population to be represented in the sample. So there are 85 out of 382. That's the proportion of girls in the actual population, and I want this same fraction to be represented in the sample. So I'm going to just take this fraction of 50. And to do that, I do 50 divided by 382 times by 85. And I do that on my calculator. 50 divided by 382 times by 85 gives me, there should be 11.12565,445. Given that these are actual people that they're going to take, I think I'll round that to 11 people. Y is directly proportional to X. Okay, straight away that means that Y is proportional to X. This means whenever you have a proportional relationship that Y is equal to something, that's called our constant of proportionality, something times X. Now you can write that straight away. What we ultimately want to do is find out what K is, and we can do that by looking at the second line. When X is equal to 500, Y is equal to 10. So I'm going to substitute that in. 10 is equal to K times by my X value, which is 500. To find out my K value, I now divide by 500 to find out that K is equal to 10 divided by 500, or 0.02. So now I can use this value and I can put it back into this to give me a nice equation that tells me that Y is equal to 0.02 times by X. That is the formula. So the formula has a Y value, it has an X value, and it wants Y in terms of X. Calculate the value of Y when X is equal to 350. Okay, well I know that Y is equal to 0.02X. And it tells me that X is equal to 350, so it's 0.02 times by 350. I type it into my calculator, and the answer I get is 7. Question 26. In triangle ABC, AC is equal to 5 centimetres, BC is equal to 8 centimetres, and angle ACB is equal to 75 degrees. Calculate the area of triangle ABC, giving your answer correct to 3 significant figures. Well, luckily, if you turn to the front of your exam paper, there's a nice formula that says area of triangle equals half AB sine C. And this means if I've got 2 lengths of a triangle and the angle in between, I can work out the area. And lo and behold, I've got 2 lengths of the triangle and the area in between. So I can just work out by typing in 0.5, that's a half, times by 5, times by 8, times by the sine of 75. I type it into my calculator, 0.5 times 5 times 8 times the sine of 75. And I get my answer 19.31851,653. I need to remember that it asked me for 3 significant figures. That's my first, that's my second, that's my third. So it's either 19.3 or it's 19.4. I look at the next digit, and because it's a 1 below 5, it rounds down to 19.3. My answer is 19.3. Moving on to point B, part B rather. Calculate the length of AB. Give your answer correct to 3 significant figures. Well, here I'm given 2 lengths and I need to find the third, and I've got one of the angles. So I know that I'm using the cosine rule. And again, that's given to me at the start. It tells me that a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos of a. The only thing I need to make sure is that the angle I've been given is opposite the length that I want to find. And it is. The angle I've been given is opposite the length that I want to find. So I don't need to do anything here. It's brilliant. So I just substitute in my numbers. B squared is one of the other sides. C squared is the other side. Multiply, take away rather, and I'm going to put this in brackets. 2 times 5 times 8 times cos of 75. I know that 5 squared is 25 and 8 squared is 64, so 25 add 64 equals 89. So this is 89, take away, and I'm going to work out this bracket separately. Some of you might be able to do it succinctly on your calculator, but I prefer to work these things out. 2 times 5 times 8 times cos of 75 is equal to 20.70552361. And when I work that out, 89 take away 20.70552361. The answer I get is 68.29447639. I need to remember it's 3 significant figures. So that's my first, that's my second, that's my third. It's either 68.2 or it's 68.3. Because of the 9, it means it's 68.3. V is equal to the square root of a over b, and we've been given some values for a and b. By considering bounds, work out the value of v to a suitable degree of accuracy. Okay, a good place to start here is just to put your upper and lower bounds of each of those numbers. You'll get some marks for that. So the upper bound for a is 6.435, and the lower bound for a is 6.425. And the b value, the upper bound, is equal to 5.5145, and the lower bound for b is equal to 5.5135. Now I'll get some marks for doing that. What I need to work out is the smallest possible value that v could be, and also the biggest value. Now, because there's a division going on in here, to get my smallest value, I need the smallest value of a, but divided by the biggest value of b. So I'm looking for the upper bound, of b. And then, of course, I have to take the square root. Now, for my biggest value, I want to take the biggest value of a and divide by the smallest value of b. That's going to give me the biggest possible answer, and I need to take the square root. So now when I substitute these values in, I've got 6.425 divided by the upper bound of b, which is 5.5145, and I then take the square root. And for the biggest value, I'm going to take the upper bound of a, 6.435, and divide by the smallest value of b, which is 5.5145. And of course I need to take the square root. Now when I work these out, I get, for the smallest possible value of v, 1.079402689, and the biggest value of b, I get 1.080340323. Now we can see that to the nearest integer, these would both be the same. They both round. Both round to 1. To 1 dp, they both round to 1.1. To 2 decimal places, they both round to 1.08. It's only when we get to 3 decimal places that there's a difference in a difference according to which bounds have been used. So therefore, we could say that it's a suitable degree of accuracy would be 2 decimal places, but we do need to show all of this working out. Okay, question 29. We have to solve this equation. There are lots of denominators in it, kind of fractions, which I really hate. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start getting rid of these. I'm going to start first of all by getting rid of that first denominator, x plus 3. Now, because it's a denominator, it means that it's dividing by x plus 3. So to undo it, I multiply by x plus 3. So I multiply that first term by x plus 3, which undoes it totally and just leaves me with 4. The second term I've also got to multiply by x plus 3. So I get 3 lots of x plus 3. That's still divided by 2x minus 1. And I've also got to multiply that second side by x plus 3. So 1 lot of x plus 3 is x plus 3. So now I've got rid of that first denominator. To get rid of the second denominator, I'm going to multiply everything by 2x minus 1. So I multiply this first term by 2x minus 1. When I multiply that second term, it gets rid of the fact that it was divided by 2x minus 1 in the first place. So now I'm just left with 3 lots of x plus 3. But I've got to also multiply the other side of the equation by 2x minus 1. So I had x plus 3, and now I'm multiplying it by 2x minus 1. And now I think I should do some expanding of brackets. So this first bracket gives me 8x minus 4. The second bracket gives me 3x plus 9. And then these brackets give me 2x squared. I get 6x, but I also get a minus x, which gives me 5x. And 3 times by minus 1 is minus 3. Then I think I'll simplify the left-hand side. I've got 8x plus 3x makes 11x. And I've got minus 4 plus 9 makes 5. And that equals 2x squared plus 5x minus 3. Now, because it's a quadratic equation, I can only solve quadratics when they're equal to 0. So to make it equal to 0, I'm going to take away 11x. And I'm also going to take away that 5 on the left-hand side. So I get 0. Brilliant. I get 2x squared. I've got 5x, but I needed to take away 11x, so I've got minus 6x. And I've got minus 3, but I want to take away another 5, so I've got minus 8. Then I'm going to divide everything by 2. 0 divided by 2 is 0. I get x squared minus 3x minus 4. And then I can, of course, factorise. So I've got x and x, and 2 numbers that multiply together to make minus 4, but add together to make minus 3, are, of course, minus 4 and plus 1. And now to make these brackets, to make this expression equal to 0, each of those brackets must be equal to 0. So either this bracket equals 0, in which case x must be equal to 4, or the other bracket is equal to 0, in which case x must be equal to minus 1. And we've solved the equation.